Pet is an anime centered around a bunch of people called Crushers who can go into people's minds and influence their memories by changing people in your mind with someone else from your mind. So, for example, they could swap like your mother and your father in your memories, or they could swap themselves with like your father to make you believe that they are your father. They do this by getting to by entering into these mindscapes and influencing the peaks of someone, which are your happiest memories, and your valley, which are your unhappiest memories. And there's a lot of visual metaphor tied in with the concepts of peaks and valleys. There's more nuance to the system than that, with images and babies and code words and locks. But there is no real reason to go into this system, and to be honest, the show does a very bad job of explaining its power system, and it can be very confusing, and it can be a pretty large hurdle to get over at the beginning because it doesn't do a great job of explaining itself. But if you run with it and you pay attention, by the end, you'll know exactly what's happening. You're not going to be confused if you manage to make it to the end of the show, but it is a pretty big if. The Crushers work for this mysterious organization, which we know bits about the history of this organization, but by the end of the show, I'm not sure we actually know what it does or how it makes money. We just know that it is an organization run by people who have the ability to hypnotize other people. But we're not really sure why it exists or what its purpose is, and this is left intentionally vague because the higher-ups are intentionally keeping this information from the people who work on it. However, as you can imagine, this is a very shady criminal organization with its hands in things like assassination and probably drug trade, but definitely human trafficking and definitely organ sales. There are roughly 3 main characters, all with a relationship to a man named Hayashi, who was probably the only redeemable character in the entire show. Basically, everyone in this show is kind of a colossal piece of shit. And if anything, I think that's probably what holds Pet back the most, other than not explaining itself, is it's really hard to get invested in root for any of the characters because they're all awful. Every single one of them. There's basically no redemption. When you get to the end of the show, I find that for me, the characters I ended up rooting for are kind of just the least awful or who had the most explorable behavior. Because the name of the show, Pet, references how the underlings of the organization are called pets. They're basically just human livestock cattle designed to do whatever mind-bending hypnosis bullshit that the higher-ups want them to do. And they're not even really people. They are essentially owned by the organization. Where the show does excel, however, is once you have a good grasp of the system, it begins to get into the interpersonal relationships and intrigue plot about the characters in the organization constantly trying to fuck each other over on every single level of it, and it turns into this almost psychological mind game death battle between the main cast, each with their own motivations and their own relationships, who don't necessarily want to kill each other, with one exception, but who are mostly in it for themselves. And so it turns into this almost like Death Note styled hypnosis battle, basically. It essentially take the idea of Inception and merge it with Death Note, and you've kind of got what Pet's got going on. Twitch and Discord in the description. I've been Sacrobolic. Your Envoy of Hope. Bye-bye.